Hey guys, so it is the week before Knit City. There's so much to do right now and so little time. And at the same time, I'm still adding more things onto the to-do list and I'm not quite sure why. So let me do a little run through with you about what I've been making, what I am making, what I'm going to make the week before Knit City. Hey guys, welcome. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is Felicia from SweetGeorgia Yarns. We are a hand-dyed knitting yarn company based in Vancouver in Canada. And every Friday I come here for what we call Taking Back Friday, which is to basically talk about things that we're making with knitting and spinning and weaving and dyeing. I like to talk a lot about making time to make things. Now, time is very short right now because we have just 1 week until Knit City. And Knit City is basically the biggest yarn and knitting festival that happens in Vancouver every year. Happens every fall, the week before Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving. And we have been sponsoring Knit City since day one, since before it even began. And so it's a kind of, well, yeah, it's not kind of, it's a really big thing in our calendar, and it's a big event, and it's a big thing that we're doing. And so we have a booth that we are setting up. You know, I have the whole team at SweetGeorgia who they are just amazing right now because, you know, September 30th is our fiscal year end. We're doing inventory, we're doing accounting, we're doing like all these things to tie up loose ends at the same time as we are also getting ready with inventory and all freshly dyed stock for our booth at Knit City. And we're also creating all of these vignettes that are going to go into the Knitters Lounge at Knit City. This is kind of a big thing. And so, yeah, we got a lot of stuff on the go. One of the things that I want to do is I want to bring my baby wolf loom and another loom to the lounge, so that way we can do some demonstrations so people can come up and see what's happening with the loom, how it works. You know, I feel like Knit City is great for knitters, absolutely, but there are a lot of knitters who are very fiber curious. They're very weave curious, they're very spinning curious, just very curious about how all these other fiber arts work. And so without any real way to interface with any of that stuff, like if you don't go to a sheep and wool festival, you don't really get that much chance or that much opportunity to see a floor loom up close or see a spinning wheel up close. So we bring these things out every year because it just gives people a chance to see and touch and feel and all that kind of stuff. So we're doing that, but before I can do that, I have to get a new project up on the loom. So I'm gonna tell you what I just took off the loom. So I have been working on a number of things all at the same time. Many of the things are related to the fact that I'm doing this multi-shaft weaving course that's coming out in November. And so one of the projects that just came off of the loom is this ginormous wrap. So this humongous wrap is all made out of the BFL and silk DK yarn that we have right now. And I am in love with this wrap. It feels so good. It feels so woolly and good. And it's soft and it's squishy. It is just great. I know that last week I talked about how I finished that sweater, the Soldotna sweater, with this same yarn. And it knit up beautifully. It knit up into like a really wonderfully soft and spongy sort of fabric. All of the color work evened out really beautifully. And same, like when you weave with this yarn, it also does this similar thing. Like it mellows out and then just becomes this beautiful fabric. So this is something that I wove for the multi-shaft weaving class, and it's done with a broken twill pattern and using 3 different colors. This ended up being something like 5 skeins of yarn, I think, about 5 skeins of yarn. And it is lovely. I would make more of these, absolutely. And so what I did was on my loom, I have it cut off. I don't know if you can barely see it, but I've basically cut off the warp and I've left it all threaded. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use that same threading and I'm gonna do additional projects with the same threading. So I could wind another warp with different colors and then make another wrap just like this. But I have some other things that I have to do in the meantime. I have to set it up for Knit City, and I'm going to be doing that with a party of 5. Actually, it's 3 party of 5s. So if you did not see previously, for fall, we came out with 3 party of 5s, which are 15 mini skeins altogether. And these 15 mini skeins form a spectrum. They just kind of go from, it's a huge spectrum. And so what I'm doing is I am going to make basically like a giant color gamp shawl with those party of 5 mini skeins. So you can see I've just begun. I'm using my my mini little warping board here. This is a 4.5 yard warping board. And I'm taking the party of 5s. I've just wound 5 of the balls so far. 5 of the balls, 2 of the colors have gone on here. You can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm winding a project that is going to be 16 ends of each color. So you can see there's 8 on top of one color, 8 on top of the next color, and then I'm going to add in the next color, next color, next color. And so it's going to be this spectrum of 15 colors. Each color is going to be 16 ends, which approximately comes to 1.5 inches each, and then the whole thing will get tied on to the ends that have been previously left on this loom. And so if you come to Knit City, hopefully you will see this loom with a giant rainbow color gamp project on it. So wish me luck. That is supposed to happen in the next week. So I had all this yarn left over from my sweater project. I showed you guys last week how much yarn I still had left after making this sweater project. And so I took all of those extra colors and the extra yarns and I wound myself another short little warp here. And so this is another warp that I'm going to use as a sampler for that multi-shaft weaving course. I've already made a sampler with another set of colors, but since I had these 4 colors left over, I thought, well, why not? I'll just do another tiny little sampler, and I'm gonna warp this one up on a table loom. And so if you do find yourself inside the School of Sweet Georgia looking at the multi-shaft weaving course later on, you will be able to see this sampler being made on a floor loom as well as on a table loom and how the process differs between the 2 of those things. Yeah, very excited about this. So somehow I've decided that I also need to get that warp up on the table loom before Knit City. Now, along the same lines as those projects that I've just been talking about with that BFL Silk DK, I have this other project with the BFL Silk DK. So this is the beekeeper sweater. Again, have not made that much progress. It's going. I finished watching Stranger Things season 3 while knitting this, and that's all all well and good. But yeah, I haven't had a ton of time to work on this, and again, just one more week to finish this, that, and then there's more. So every October is Spinzilla, has been Spinzilla for a number of years now, and this year there's no Spinzilla. This year it's going to be Spin Together. If you guys are still interested in joining a team for something kind of like a spinning challenge, go to spintogether.org, and then they are organizing a Spinzilla-like competition. But in any case, the first week of October is designated as Spinning and Weaving Week in the US. And so it's kind of like a celebration of all things spinning and weaving, and it just makes sense. Like, this is the season when it feels like it's a good time to be spinning. And so for every year we come up with a new colorway specifically for this special season. And so this year we came up with a new colorway, and it's called Falling Leaves. Now, this is one of the things that I wanted to mention is that we did this for about 9 years. We ran a monthly color of the month fiber club and yarn club. And then a couple of years we stopped running that club because I wanted to recapture the amount of time that we were all spending making the club and redirect that time and energy towards building the School of Sweet Georgia. So that's all well and good, but one of the things that I really do miss about the Fiber Club is that we don't get the chance to touch and feel a lot of those different sheep breeds and a lot of those wool breeds and things like that. And so doing this one color once a year where we get to play with different fibers, try lots of different things, this is fun. So what we did is we came up with a colorway called Falling Leaves, and we dyed this colorway on 3 different fibers. The first fiber is Superwash Targhee. The second one was an alpaca, merino, and silk blend. And the third one is Gotland. Every single one of these fibers is completely different, takes the color completely differently, and is just so fascinating to see and to touch and to feel. And so I have, because I had to take photos of them, I have one of each braid at home. I have convinced the team that it's okay for me to keep these at my home. Yeah. So I did start spinning the Gotland. Gotland is one of my favorite fibers. It's not like the softest fiber. It's not a soft and squishy fiber at all. Gotland is more like, it's more like mohair, a little bit like Wensleydale. It's more coarse, feels a little bit more hairy, but that hairiness is very glossy and wavy. It doesn't have like a merino kind of crimp that's like all jittery kind of crimp. It has a very like long and elongated wave to it. So that is what the Gotland looks like. Gotland generally it can come in sort of a silvery color, naturally silver gray color. And so when we dye on top of the Gotland, it takes on this beautiful depth of color, depth and richness of color. So it's a lot more muted than you can see this other one that we've dyed. So this one is the superwash Targhee. You can see the superwash process makes the colors pop, makes it really bright, makes it really vibrant and saturated. And then this one is the Gotland. So it's much more muted, much more mellow. Same colors, different fibers, completely different effects. And then this other one here, this is the alpaca, merino, and silk. And alpaca naturally takes dyes a little bit lighter, much more pale. So anything that you've dyed with alpaca will just look kind of like 2 shades lighter than everything else. So you can see this compared to this. Again, same colors, different fibers, completely different effects. This fiber feels really slinky and drapey and smooth and slick. Alpaca tends to be a little bit more slippery to spin, so sometimes you spin it over the fold if you want to, or yeah, it just needs a little bit extra twist to hold it all together, otherwise it kind of drifts apart a little bit. But it is beautiful and lovely and silky. With all of these things, I could see absolutely spinning up the yarn and then weaving with it into very, very different projects. So this one would make something like a really nice shawl kind of yarn, something soft and loose and drapey, perfect for next to skin. This superwash Targhee, I could see it being very, very bouncy and lofty. So woven, I might weave this into like a scarf, a very casual kind of scarf, not an elegant drapey scarf, more like a bouncy, cozy. This would actually be really great as a knitting yarn, actually. Knitting, poofiness. And finally, this Gotland here, if I were to spin this up and to make something with it, I might make something like mitts, outerwear mitts or something like that. Probably something like that. So lots and lots of different options. Of course, you could mix and blend them all together. But my goal, which I told Teresa, was to take a chunk of each one of these fibers and spin them into a little sample skein that I could bring to Knit City. Again, something I have to do within this 1 week span of time. So you guys, you write me quite often and you tell me that one of the biggest challenges of liking more than one craft, if you guys like weaving and spinning and knitting and dyeing and all these kinds of things, to like more than one craft is challenging because there's just not enough time to do all of the things. And so you can see here I have 2 looms that I have to set up, at least 2 looms, 1 knitting project, 3 mini skeins of things to spin. I think that's about it. So I need a strategy in order to manage all of these projects, to juggle all these projects. Like, how am I going to do it? And I think about context in this case. Like, time is very, very limited. And so I think about context. That's the first thing. So my knitting project It only comes out when I'm driving around in the car where I'm sitting in the passenger seat. So I'm kind of just sitting there. So sitting in the car, I can knit on my project. Going to things like soccer practice and ballet practice and whichever kind of practice, like I can sit there and I can knit while I'm waiting. So knitting is fabulous because it's portable. And so that's how the beekeeper is going to get done. And these other projects, the weaving projects, they require a little bit more dedicated time and energy, but the main thing is to sort of batch things. That's one idea. So taking all of those mini skeins that have to be wound into balls, taking them and trying to do them all at one time makes it much more efficient. So that is one thing that I like to batch, is just doing all of the ball winding all at one time. Ball winding drives me crazy. And then to actually wind the warps, it would be ideal to have some dedicated, concentrated time to do that, because winding the warps is very important to make sure that the yarns are all under the same amount of tension. So to concentrate on that part is very, very important. But then, actually tying the knots, the overhand knots that happen on the loom, but it's not such a big deal. And so that's something that I can do while, people are, milling around, playing, watching TV or whatever. I can sit here and I can do that. And so that is no problem. I could probably do that in the evenings. And then the actual weaving process, since I'm going to bring these looms and they're going to be sort of halfway in the midst of being woven, I don't have to finish anything. I can just start it. So that part is not such a big deal. The spinning is going to be a much bigger challenge because, again, that requires dedicated time, that requires concentrated time. And the only thing I can think of is maybe perhaps waking up earlier in the morning to do maybe 10 or 15 minutes of spinning in the morning. That's one way to do it. Or late at night. This is the trickiest one right now. So that is about it for this week. That's the update. I just wanted to show you what came off of the loom, what is about to go back onto the loom, what I'm working on right now, what new fibers are out right now. We have a couple of other things that have just recently launched, and that is that in the School of Sweet Georgia, you can find Rachel Smith, who is also Welford Pearls. She's teaching her first class on the School of Sweet Georgia, and it's called Spin to Knit a Sweater. And Rachel's class is fantastic. It's detailed, it is clear, and she leads you through a process of looking at small bits of fiber, sampling, trying to figure out what is the best way to spin that fiber, what can you do with that fiber, and if you should spin a larger quantity from the samples that you've created. So it's very methodical, it's very thoughtful, it's very much about intentional spinning. So if you are at all interested in that kind of work, then I highly encourage you guys to come and visit us inside the School of Sweet Georgia. The next thing that's happening is, again, this multi-shaft weaving course is coming out in November. And so if you're interested in working with the floor loom or with the table loom, I highly encourage you guys to find me in there teaching this content. And finally, one more class that we have coming soon is the tapestry weaving course with Jana Marie Valley. She is a fabulous tapestry weaver from the Sunshine Coast in BC, and I'm really, really excited to share her content with you. It is so cool and so different from the frame loom weaving stuff that I was talking about earlier this year. Frame loom weaving is not the same as tapestry weaving. Also, if you guys are planning to be at Knit City, we have a number of events planned for our Knitters Lounge. So we have a spin-in on Sunday, so you can come and visit Katrina and Rachel and myself, and we'll be there spinning away on our wheels. And there's also going to be a tapestry weaving demo by Jana. She's going to bring a tapestry loom, her Merrick's looms, and we're going to talk about that. And I will be doing some demonstrations on Saturday with this baby wolf loom and another table loom as well. And Bridget at the studio has a very, very fun speed knitting competition planned as well. So if you want to come and participate in any of these activities, please do come by and see us. We're very, very, very excited that Knit City is almost here. Wish me luck in making all these projects, and I hope to see you guys next weekend. That's it for this episode. Thank you guys so much. If you like this content, please do hit the like button. And if you would like to see more like this, please do hit subscribe. And I come basically every Friday and talk about what I'm knitting and weaving and spinning and dyeing. So I hope that you guys will join us here again for another episode. Thank you guys so much for watching this one. I will see you in the next one. All right, bye for now.